Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to What Do You Say? I'm your host, Frank Termini. If you like what we're doing, please hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you can be notified anytime we upload any new material. Today, I got Alex Fazzino, and I have a roller coaster ride of a story. So we got a roller coaster of a story here. And we've had so many stories where there was, addiction involved, and then, there's recovery. And so there's this restoration and this redemption story that we had. And this is actually far from that, unfortunately. And it just turned into an absolute nightmare for you. So tell me your wife's name, your ex-wife's name. Well, I don't know. She was your wife.
She was Emily Beckwith Fazzino.
Emily
Beckwith and Emily Fazzino.
So let's get a little bit of a backstory. That family is a big-time family in Iowa.
That's correct. They own a large chain of grocery stores, second biggest to Hy-Vee. They're in, Iowa, Illinois, South Dakota, Nebraska, and now Missouri.
So they have a ton of money and a lot of influence in Iowa.
I would say, yeah. They were the second biggest newspaper advertiser in the state of Iowa at the time all this happened.
So now they can also control the narrative in the media.
Which they did a pretty good job of, I would say.
Okay, so Emily, how long were you married to her?
About 9 years.
9 years.
8 or 9 years. It was
when the incident happened, and I don't want to give it away.
We were married in 2003, and
the whole thing happens in what year?
That was January 29th, 2012.
So 9 years. Okay. And so when did you suspect she had a problem? And I believe, if I remember correctly, it was opiates.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. And so when did you suspect this?
Well, in hindsight, being 2020, playing pickup basketball, I broke my ankle in the early 2000s, like right around the time we were married. Either shortly before or shortly after, I can't remember. But I had been prescribed some Vicodin, and she took a bunch of them. And, I was saving some. I was like, wow, these make you feel great. I didn't eat, I was like, I'm going to save some. And she took them. And, but I thought she was just recreationally using, at that time.
Right.
It became a lot more clear after we moved to Iowa in 2006. She would have episodes where be in complete delirium. What would happen, I got called from work one day. She was at the hospital, and she's talking about purple elephants and...
So did they drug test her at the hospital?
No, not that I'm aware of.
That shocks
me. What they did, and keep in mind back then, for sure in Iowa, they didn't even have, when you're using multiple doctors to get prescriptions, they didn't have the red flags system so I get called to the hospital, and she's out of her mind. And the nurse pulls me aside, and she said, is there anything she could have taken with her prescriptions or anything that they know about that could have caused, a reaction that she took? So I said, well, I don't know. I said, but I only live a mile away from the hospital. I said, I'll be right back. And I went to our house, and I went to the medicine cabinet, and I grabbed a plastic grocery bag, and I emptied it. I'm talking NyQuil, Robitussin, whatever was in there, everything. And the shock stuff starts here. So I'm walking into the hospital with this grocery bag, and my mother-in-law's outside having a cigarette. And she grabs me by the arm, like forcefully. And she said, "What are you doing with that?" I said, well, they asked what she might have taken, that there could be a reaction from, two innocent things that combined have done this. And she berated me outside that hospital, where I had to physically remove her hand from my arm and yank it away and go into the hospital and give them that stuff. And
so clearly your mother-in-law suspects this and she's trying to hide it.
That's
the only thing
at
that
the time I didn't know that.
But in hindsight, you have to think
that is a fact.
So she's clearly enabling her.
Absolutely. She is a raging alcoholic.
Okay, so
she was drinking, almost a 1.75 of Grey Goose every day.
Oh, jeez.
She was
almost
in public. She you never knew how she was going to embarrass everybody.
Got it. Okay, so she's enabling her. So you bring the meds into the doc, and the doc says what? What all was she?
There was nothing that.
Nothing.
No.
Okay, was she on any psych meds by chance?
Not that I know at the time. So, it all really started right there. And what I didn't know until a little bit later, so from there, everything's fine for a little while. And I had re-injured a shoulder. I've got really bad shoulders. And I had fell over a pallet jack. I was carrying a giant box, a box that could fit probably 4 of us, right? But it's all styrofoam. It's light, but I just can't see where I'm going. And I stepped on a pallet jack and I hurt my shoulder. Well, that had happened, and a few months later, I was sick. And when I was sick, I went into the doctor's office. And, I don't remember if it was allergies or a cold, just the flu or whatever. But she insisted on going to the doctor's appointment with me, which was odd. But I was like, all right, So she comes. And so we're in the doctor's office, and the doctor says...
she talks the doctor into prescribing pain pills.
Well, at the end, the doctor asked me, he said, "So how are the Vicodin doing for your shoulder?" And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "How are the Vicodin doing for your shoulder?" He said, "Your wife called in a prescription." And I started crying. And I'm in there, and I'm like, I said... I can't remember his name, Dr. Alex's husband. But anyway, I said, "Do not prescribe me any pain medication or any medication without talking to me, and I will pick it up, the script, nobody else, from now on." And on the way home from that doctor's appointment, as you can imagine, I'm fairly livid, right? And in the car, she brings up, you just want, or you're setting me up for a divorce. You just want the money. That's what my mom told me. That's all you cared about at the hospital. And so her mom filled her with this idea that I want her to stop using all this stuff. And I'm just using it to try and set her up for a divorce. Which is asinine to begin with, because, I'm employed by her family at this time. I live in a house that they own. I lose everything, right? So I dropped her off at home. She says, "Where are you going?" I said, "Don't worry about it." And I slammed the door, and I left, and I went less than a mile to my in-laws' house, and I walked in the house, and I looked at my mother-in-law, and she's must have already got a call from Emily, and she starts yelling at me, and I told her, I said, "You shut up." I said, "What kind of a mother are you that you would rather hide your daughter's problem than help her fix it?" I said, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And I mean,
Where's the dad in all this?
he wasn't there at that time,
Okay.
but he knew also. You know, it came out and I'll tell that part later.
Okay, so now this progresses and progresses, and I've been the loved one of a drug addict, and it's helpless, and you can't do anything.
No, but it was a roller coaster because she would be fine for months, and she would then she would have these episodes of just clearly out of this world experience. You know, she would not be coherent whatsoever. And
she couldn't have just been taking Vicodin to do that. She had
she was taking all kinds of things.
Oxycontin.
Yeah, well, yeah, everything. She was by her own admission, according to her medical record, she was taking up to 60 Vicodin a day. Now this girl weighed 105 pounds.
Jesus.
And so
how did she go to the bathroom?
I don't know. I don't know. And I'm
or sleep for that matter, because when I take a Vicodin, I don't sleep. It may get rid of my pain and it may relax me, but I can't fall asleep. I just kind of nod. I hate Vicodin. I hate
all of them.
I hate opioids. I will take them if I have to, but the only other drug that I hate more than opioids are corticosteroids. I hate them.
Yeah. I've had surgery since this happened. And I told the doctor, I said, don't even bother prescribing me any opioids. I'll take Advil and take my chances. I won't mess with it. But you know, so yeah, I mean, her parents were aware, and I didn't know it. But what bothers
being
me,
that prestigious of a family, they were probably too concerned about their image.
There's no question about it. And what bothers me the most in hindsight is she had this episode. I mean, we're home with the kids. The kids are all, you know, maybe, I think they're 5, 3, and 1. And I mean, I'm like, I'm going to call an ambulance. Her parents said no, they were coming over. And then they said she just needs orange juice, her blood sugar's low, and really made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting she was
on drugs.
And I knew, you know, but I let it creep in, and maybe I'm wrong. And I said, okay. And they gave her orange juice and she slept it off, and, you know, and I let it go. And I mean, I guess because I didn't want to believe I was right.
You're definitely going to have mixed emotions with that. You definitely, I get that, you know, but that's something I have learned, a very painful lesson, as you have too. You have to expose that, and you have to get that shit in front of someone who can help.
Absolutely.
You know, you have to, you know, someone.
I mean, you can't make someone go to rehab and get their life better, but you have to do what you have to do, which I did after this episode that I just told you about with her mom. And I told her, what kind of a mother are you? Well, it wasn't long after that I was on the road traveling with their company. And there's a video that if anybody that looks me up can find the video online that I recorded we were FaceTiming, and I just held my phone low and recorded it. She was so out of it. Now, one of my sister-in-laws were there, but the kids were there. And I told my direct supervisor, who was her uncle and one of the vice presidents of the company, I said, I can't do this. I said, I have to go home. I said, I can't leave her with the kids anymore.
How many kids you have at this time?
We have 3.
Okay.
We have all 3. And
the age range at this time is what?
It's 5, 3, and 1.
Okay. All right.
And so the next morning, I mean, we had to wait till the next morning. There was a blizzard, and in Iowa, the highways are whited out. So we had to wait till morning to go home. We get home, and I mean, I'm go on a tirade. I mean, I am going to flush every medicine I can find down the toilet. And she called the police. And
so now she's probably calling the police and telling the police you're getting violent with her.
I can't remember if she said that or not. I don't think so. I think she just said that I'm trying to flush her medicine down the toilet.
All right.
And
because I'm just thinking of the future and what eventually ends up happening.
Well, we're living in a very small community. The police were there within just a minute or two. And they told me, you can't, her name's on these prescriptions. You can't do that. And so I called my mom, and my aunt came up, and I had been talking with my sister to, like
now,
somebody
is Marg
that
an
deals with
attorney
this a
or
lot.
her husband's an attorney?
Marg's husband is an attorney.
Got it. Okay.
But we're talking to this lady that specializes in this stuff, and she says they have to hit rock bottom. You have to figure that out, or you have to make them want to get the help. So
I'll give you a story. A friend of mine was struggling with heroin addiction, and I was calling on his behalf, trying to get him into a facility. And the people at those facilities, I thought was kind of cold, but it is what it is. They're like, I ain't talking to you. When he wants to get sober, he'll call me. Until then, I have nothing to say to you.
and
I'm like, okay, well, that's a fucking dick
so
sandwich.
how do you push that along?
You can't.
So
you're fucked.
here's the plan that we came up with. She was mad and was talking about divorce after this with the police and all that. And she was staying, I think, with her mom that week. And so I told her, I said, we're going to take the kids bowling. And I loaded up the kids in the car, and my mom and my aunt. And when we crossed the state line, I said, we're not going bowling. I said, I'm taking the kids to Kansas City for a few days to be, you need to decide if you want to keep the drugs or your family. And, so this is like a Friday. And so we take the kids to Kansas City, and on a Saturday, I got a court order to return the kids.
The next day?
The next day. It could have been the Sunday, but it was during the weekend. It was either that.
How the hell
was
did they
the next
do that?
day.
That fast?
Well, it's funny you asked that question, because first of all, the court order to return the kids, that's not even legal. They're my kids. I didn't just abscond with them and not say where I'm going or anything like that. The judge during my trial stood up in the courtroom one day. This is after everything, like he's in his plain clothes. He'd already been to his thing, but he just looks over and he says, how in the hell do you get a court order to return your own kids back home on a weekend? Well, when you have $1 billion company in a town of 13,000, that's how.
Right.
The judge is your friend, and the judge was their friend. And so I go home. I file my own petition for divorce on the way home. I stop in Des Moines at a divorce attorney. And the part I have the most guilt about is when I laid everything out for this guy, as I said, and I don't want her to have visitation unless she submits to a drug and alcohol screen.
You shouldn't feel guilty about that.
Yeah, but so opioids, withdrawal is a thing, right?
Oh, God. Here.
But it's not usually a deadly thing, but it can cause seizures and things like that.
Here, to my understanding from, a little bit of due diligence I have done, the only withdrawals that are life-threatening are benzodiazepines, which are your Xanaxes and your Valiums and shit like that, and then alcohol.
Right.
But any other drug withdrawal, it may feel like you're going to die, but they're not life-threatening.
As the doctor that testified to me said, he said, what happened to her is not normally. If it would have happened to her at any other time, if you have a seizure and you're in bed, the seizure doesn't kill you.
No, my wife had a
But
seizure.
if you're in the bathtub, it can.
Right, yeah, my wife had one.
If you're walking on the ledge of a building with no harness, that seizure could kill you. It's just a bad circumstance.
So you tell them she cannot see the kids, and they agree to it.
No, she got that from my lawyer on Friday and quit that Friday, and she was dead on Sunday. So I think what she did is she quit all at once and had that seizure in the bathtub.
So she started having withdrawals clearly. The withdrawal causes a seizure while she's in the bathtub. So talk me through that whole day. This is what
So
on Sunday?
Yeah.
This is a Sunday.
There was a wrestling tournament. I'm downstairs with my kids. I'm doing a lot of things at this point in time that I normally didn't do. I'm giving the kids a bath. I'm folding laundry, I said, I'm just trying to keep this amicable for the kids. Because she asked me why I was doing this stuff now. I'm like, and so she would give them all a bath at the same time frequently.
Yeah, we used to
Well,
do
my
that.
son, he wanted to take a shower. So I give the two little ones a bath and then my son a shower. Well, he's 5. This is like, one of his first showers. And this is how they get you is, I had to wash the shampoo off his head. But when the police asked him, he said he took a shower by himself. Well, by himself meant not with his brother and sister.
Right.
If I let him take a shower by himself at that age, he'd have come out with a full head of shampoo. Nobody unsupervised lets a 5-year-old take a shower by themselves.
Right.
And then we were watching a movie. I'm doing all this. She was supposed to come down and help at some point. And it had been a while. And I'm like, I'm mad. Right? I'm like, we're watching the movie. The movie gets quiet. I can hear the bath water running. And I'm like, I'm going to go give her a piece of my mind. What's taking you so long? That's what and I go up there and she was she was inanimate in the bathtub. And I tried to get her out of there. And
So how did her face get underwater in the bathtub is what I'm trying to figure out. Even if she does kind of pass out. I'm trying to figure out what position she was in. So when you walk in, what position she in?
Her hair, she had really long hair. And her hair was, I don't know, man. I don't have the answers to all that. I just know that she was in that bathtub. And her hair was floating on top of the water.
So was her head tipped down this way, I guess?
I would say she was more like to her side.
Okay.
But
And so you go in there and you realize.
I go in there and I'm panicking, but I'm trying to get her out of the bathtub. And, it took me 3 times to get her out of the bathtub.
We had dead weight. Plus she's wet.
Wet and taking a bath with bath oils.
Right.
And she just kept slipping right out of my arms. And so.
And now where are the kids at this point? They have any idea?
They're downstairs, but I'm screaming. And they came up. And I had to go run and get the phone and call 911 and do CPR. And I wasn't trained in CPR. And it also bothers me that, I didn't do it hard enough. I've seen CPR since, and I didn't do. And
there's no way.
Because I think I don't want to hurt her.
Right. You got to break her ribs. And you're not going to do that.
I wasn't doing it violently like I've seen it since.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of regret about that. But, she was gone. If you've ever hunted, you know what, it's, her tongue was hanging out of her mouth.
Right.
She was purple. And the police come and I had to go let them in. The kids couldn't even open the door really. And I I was just in so much shock. And they worked on her and it's then the next, and then there's a funeral, everything, and a year and a half later I get charged.
So let me ask you something. Did the 1 and the 3-year-old remember any of it?
No.
Good. The 5-year-old probably does. He's probably the one that
He remembers all of it.
Yeah.
And
I'm trying to think how old.
And it's a shame because it's given him, it was on Dateline NBC. It was all over the news, the newspapers, and people talk, and I'm like in grade school. I mean, my son got in a fight because of it. A few, because kids would say things, because of what they read in the paper,
and what their parents say.
Yeah, like to give you an example. I mean, I've got a lot of people that I thought I was friends with that think I did something. And the
Here,
reason
you want to
is,
hear something funny.
Wait, just 1 second. The reason is because the paper reported that when they did a search and seizure of the house after she died, they discovered 5 life insurance policies. Well, they found 5 yearly statements for 1 life insurance policy that covered my life and not hers. And so what they found, and compared to the way they reported it in the paper, is completely
right
to make me, it's to make me look bad. So I
So you get charged a year and a half later.
a year and a
Did
half
they come
later-
pick you up? How does that work?
Okay, so I was out shopping. My son was starting baseball.
And at this time, he's probably 7.
Well, this is both of them, Ricky and Nick. So Ricky's starting his first year of T-ball, and Nick is playing baseball also. And I'm having to buy him new pants and stuff like that, right?
And
It was actually
Coco's
both their first year.
Coco's probably what, 3? The other one's 5, and now one's 7.
Coco, so the pants I bought for Ricky didn't fit. I'm going to go down to the Dick's on 39th Street, and I'm going to exchange the pants, and this car is following me. Unmarked, dark brown Jeep Grand Cherokee, Iowa license plates. And so I'm like, what are these people capable of? What are they? And
So you're still in Iowa at this point?
No. I'm living with my parents for that year and a half after.
So you
she
take
died.
the kids and you go to Kansas City?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this car's following me, and I'm getting off the exit I'm talking the very last second.
Because you're detecting it.
I'm saying these guys are following me. And so there's a lot of times you think somebody's following you. They're just live in the same neighborhood or something, But this time, and so I do some evasive driving, and I get into that Dick's parking lot, and I park way out in the open. And I get out of my car with the baseball bat I had just bought my son at the other Dick's. And police draw their weapons, and I'm like, I didn't know who this is. It's not like there were sirens, and this is somebody's car with Iowa license plates that's following me as far as I know. And so I was supposed to be back in 20 minutes. I didn't see my kids for about 3.5 weeks. I got locked up and
so
then
they take you right
transported
then
to
and there. What'd they do with the kids?
They're at my parents' house.
So you didn't have the kids with you at this time?
No.
Oh, okay, good. All right, good. So they didn't have to see their dad
And,
get arrested.
so, we go through all the depositions. This stuff takes years. It took 4 years. And in the middle of that, Coco, of course, had cancer.
Right, so I wanted to get to that too. But first, they let you out on bond.
Yeah, $500,000 bond.
What do you got to come up with, 10%?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, because of all this, my whole life has on hold, I did have a small relatively life insurance policy on her that we had since right before we got married. I couldn't get that to trying to have a house for my kids. I had to live with my parents I lived with my parents from 2012 to 17.
So she dies in 2009?
No, she died in 12.
Dies in 2012. You get charged in 2013.
2013 or 14. I can't remember. I think it was.
So then
it was 2013.
Did you try to file for a change of venue because of the?
They did. You ought to have my attorneys on here. The most interesting man in the world, Bill Cutmus and Trevor Hook, and they were phenomenal. When I got charged, my brother-in-law, who works at a pretty prestigious law firm here in town,
He works at Shirkardi and Bacon, right?
No, he works at
Poncinelli.
Pulcinelli,
whatever it is. Right.
Yeah, he works for under Frank Ross at Pulcinelli, and he had some, he got the guys from Iowa. He said, "Who's the best criminal attorney in Iowa?" And without batting an eye, they said Bill Cutmus. So that's who I got. And what people don't realize is, who needs the lawyer the most is the innocent guy. The state of Iowa, they had to find a medical examiner from South Dakota to even say it was a homicide, because their own wouldn't. And
so what did he base that on?
He based that off of a picture that said that it couldn't have happened the way it happened. But the video footage showed there was this bath caddy across the
You
tub.
had video in your bathroom?
No, the body cam footage of the police.
Okay.
So they said this couldn't have happened the way I said because of the way the bath caddy was found in the picture. Well, on the body cam, it shows the police moved it.
Ah, okay.
And, so all this, stuff goes on. And
so
then,
let me ask you something. An Italian guy on a murder rap in Iowa up against the most prestigious family in the city has to go over like a fart in a swimsuit.
And they had said, it's even on the Dateline, the first question they asked my sister-in-law was, they said that we were a mafia family.
Sure they did.
I said, if I was a mafia family, I wouldn't be getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go to work for your company. This is ridiculous.
Right.
I said, my dad wakes up at 4 a.m. to go to work. I go, you think that's how we would do if we were a mafia family? I said, these people are nuts.
Yeah, they watch too much TV.
Right. And, I just, and also on the Dateline, what bothers me about it, maybe as much as anything, is I think it was Don Schnitker was the Iowa Department of Criminal Investigation guy in charge of my case. And on Dateline, he says, I find it hard to believe, and he said this in trial as well, I find it very hard to believe that an otherwise healthy 32-year-old just dies in the bathtub. Now, since Emily's died, could definitely count on one hand, we're talking 13 years, how many prescriptions I've had. Emily had 7 prescriptions in 15 days the month she died.
Did they do an autopsy, Al?
They did.
Did they do a toxicology report?
They did. They said she didn't have anything in her system.
Fuck me. Of course not. So that's strike. That's a strike against you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why they think,
So what was their case? How did they say you killed her?
They said I strangled her.
Did she have marks around her neck?
Yeah, she had marks on her.
Probably from you grabbing her out of the bathtub.
Absolutely. Because she had bruises on her head. She probably, I don't know, she had several bruises on her head. I dropped her twice. One time she hit, her head hit the faucet. Hard. I heard it tink, that sound.
Right.
And when I finally got her out, I kind of suplexed her and probably suplexed her all the way back into the cabinets behind me,
Right.
to get her out of the tub. And so that's their main thing. But that guy, that Don Schnicker, admitted in court, he never once looked at her medical records. And, one of the most interesting parts.
This is the guy that's prosecuting you.
This is the guy that's the investigator. The guy is prosecuting me. They know. I think they knew that their case was shit the entire time. I mean, the trial gets moved to Decorah, Iowa, and we go up there for trial. And I have dinner with my attorneys and my family every day after court. And the trial lasted about 2.5 weeks. And
did you get a change of venue?
Yeah. I was got moved to Decorah, Iowa from Boone, Iowa.
Got it. Okay. How far away is that?
A couple hours.
Okay.
And I thought it was a bad sign when I first got there. The first guy I see as I'm walking into this hotel where my attorneys are staying, because I just rented an Airbnb. It's got to be 7 feet tall, right? Like, I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, Jesus, that guy's so tall. And I look, and it's Rafe LaFrance. I said, Rafe LaFrance, huh? I said, yeah. I said, nice to see you. I go, you caused me a lot of grief in college. I went to Mizzou. And then we walk in the door together, and one of my attorneys is like, Rafe, they're good friends. He goes, because he asked me what I'm doing in Decorah, and I didn't really want to say. And he looks at me and goes, oh. I said, yeah. And but anyway, so we go to dinner every night after the trial, and I specifically remember one of the first days, as this thing's getting going, and my mother-in-law gets on the stand, and I mean, lie after lie after lie, all lies that we have indisputable evidence of. She said she didn't know anything about Emily's addiction. All these things. And my lawyer, I don't know if he asked her a single question. Not a single,
He didn't even try to cross-examine her?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he may have asked her some questions, but there were none of any substance for sure if he did. And I was livid, right? Like, I said, how could you do this to me? I said, you didn't ask her any questions. I said, this is a lie. That's a lie. We can prove it. He said, Alex, you've just got to trust me. He said, the last thing I want to do is berate the grieving mother and get her sympathy. He said, I don't have to call her a liar. He says, just wait till the next witness, which was the doctor, the internist that Emily would see. And I hated this woman because Emily died for the last 4 or 5 years till this trial happened. And when she told the truth in that trial, it's one of the 3 most important things that got, why I'm free. She took copious notes. Her mother and father were in the room at the doctor's appointments. She recommended inpatient rehab. 90 days, inpatient rehab. No. They kept saying no because they didn't want to
So
hurt their
now
reputation.
she calls her the liar indirectly because...
Right. And, it's so many times.
So you think her testimony is what got you off?
It's one of the things.
What else?
Well, there was a psychologist that Emily was seeing. We were having some marital problems because of this.
Right.
And I mean, and what's amazing is how a lot of these doctors that had to testify, they wanted to not. Like, I mean, wanted to not.
Well, yeah, because
testify.
they don't want to have to testify and
'Cause
then
they
go
don't
against that family.
It was unbelievable. That's why, I mean, I wish I had the raw footage from Dateline, stuff that isn't going to be in the trial transcript, that you could see that how bad, you know, some of it probably is.
So what other doctors testify? The internist, the psychiatrist, and who else?
The psychiatrist, he read Emily's own words for half an hour in court on a questionnaire she did, how her safe place is at home with me, and the root of her problems and her addiction is
Her mother.
her mom's alcoholism and their codependence, and her dad's alcoholism and this and that. And man, that guy didn't want to read that, but he did. He was forced to by the court. And the third one is a guy that, when you have a medical examiner that says it's homicide, well, I have to pay now for a medical examiner that's going to say it's not. So you send everything to the medical examiners, and a guy from the University of Kentucky, he's the second top medical examiner in the state of Kentucky, looked at it, and he's like, this is not a homicide. And he lined it all up, and you know, so we hired him.
So based on what? What
Well,
was...
like her thigh, there's a bone in your throat that if you forcibly choke someone is going to be broken. And it wasn't broken.
Okay.
The fact that her medical history with the drugs she was taking, and it's his theory that she got the response to the divorce on that Friday and quit everything cold turkey. That's his theory of what happened. And that's why there's no drugs in her system.
And there's normally, they give him like methadone or Suboxone or something to help curb that.
Right. And she didn't get any of that because she, you know, obviously was trying to brush her tracks so that she could have custody of the kids or whatnot. And, you know, that guy got up on the stand, and the first question, you know, well, how much are you getting paid for this? Said, well, he said, the bill is $50,000. He said, but that goes to the University of Kentucky. I don't get any of it. And they're like, what? You don't? He says, no, I don't take any of that money. That just goes to the University of Kentucky. He said, my wife always said, I'm a brilliant doctor, but a bad businessman. and you know, that guy he wanted to do my case because he was just so sure, you know. So anyway, you know, in a criminal case, they say the longer the jury goes, the better. And in my case, I was like, there is no, if they can't see it right away, I'm screwed. You know, they got to the jury somehow. So late in the afternoon, final arguments are completed. The jury deliberates for like an hour or two.
Where are you at while they're deliberating?
Just Airbnb, waiting.
You're just sitting there
yeah,
waiting.
I mean, it could
Are you with your attorneys? Are you by yourself? Who are you with?
Well, I mean,
that's got to be
I always had some family up there.
What are they? Let me ask you something. If found guilty, what are you looking at?
Life in prison without the possibility of parole.
25 years.
No, life in prison without the possibility of parole.
So you're staying there till you're dead.
Till you're dead. For as long as you shall live. And, you know, so my lawyer, again, we're at one of our dinners after, and this time he'd been doing just a touch of drinking. You know, I mean, I always drank a little, but this time he said, Alex, he says, I think we've won this damn case. He said, but you just never know what a jury's gonna do. He said, but I want you to promise me something. I said, anything, Bill. He says, if that jury, 'cause, 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 He said, if that jury comes back guilty, you stand up and say, I was drunk the entire time and you didn't get a proper representation, and I'll admit to it. He said, I'll lose my law license so you can get an appeal, or so you can get a retrial. And I mean, I still talk once a year. I try and do it, call them, right before Thanksgiving, tell them how thankful I am. This year I was working on Thanksgiving and they called me. And he tells me every year, this is the case that I went to law school for. He says, almost every client I have is guilty. He said, this is the one this is why I went to law school every year. And, it's hard because my in-laws still say that the datelines are usually 2 hours. Well, they had to make mine 1 because there would be no suspense at the end. And they have a job to do, but it sucks. I didn't want to do it. I said, well, what if I don't do it? They said, then we do the story without your side. Then
you get a dick sandwich for sure.
Right. So what I did it, and but they have a job to do. They want people guessing till the end. So they didn't show the doctor's testimony, any of them. They didn't show the most major things in the trial, because if they already had to cut it to an hour to let there be some doubt, let alone show that. If you show that in the first 20 minutes, well, everybody's going to tune out because they know.
When does Coco get diagnosed with cancer? Coco's your youngest daughter.
November 2014.
Your wife dies when? Refresh my memory. I'm trying to put a timeline.
January 29th, 2012.
You start trial when?
Not till February or March of 2016.
So you're dealing with a trial and a daughter what kind of cancer did she have?
She had AML leukemia.
So she has leukemia.
Yeah. I was actually, when she got the day, so Halloween, I had to carry her. We went to the first house and she said, I'm tired. I had to carry her the rest of the way trick-or-treating. She felt like she couldn't catch her breath. She'd been to the doctor a couple times. They said she's got the virus that's going around, everybody's getting, and whatever. And my mom insisted on doing blood work. And I had to go to Iowa for depositions. And I'd hit the hotel bar, because it's so hard for me to sleep with all that on my mind, the depositions and stuff. I'd hit the hotel bar a little bit, get a little lubed up so I could relax and try and fall asleep. And I wasn't asleep for more than an hour. And I get the phone call. Well, first I woke up, I was dreaming. I was dreaming that my mom was crying and calling. And I woke up and I saw I missed a call. And so, first thought is like, my dad, something happened, somebody died. And I call him, my mom tells me that there's a doctor, he's going to call you very shortly. We're at Children's Mercy. And I'm like, is everybody okay? And she says, well, Coco has cancer. And that was it. God, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And so, I go outside, I'm chain smoking now. At that, I don't smoke anymore, and I had quit for 5 years before Emily died. But after I got out of lockup, I started smoking again. And
so now you're dealing with a court case and a 3-year-old daughter that has
she was 5.
She was 5 that has leukemia.
Yeah. And when the trial was scheduled for 2015 in April. And, vivid memories, the doctor sat me and my family in a room, and she asked us, she's going to have a bone marrow transplant. The initial chemo didn't work, so she's going to have a bone marrow transplant. And, so after everybody asked their questions and stuff, I said, okay, everybody needs to leave. I need to talk to the doctor. And I said, Dr. August, I said, I'm just a guy. I just need to know what I'm dealing with. I said, I know you don't want to put chances on it. I said, but I have to know. I just need to know what I'm faced with. I said, so I need you to put a number on it. And I said, he said 30%.
30% chance of living.
Yeah. And I was dejected. And I told him, and I said, well, I've got this trial coming up, and I just want to get it behind me. I said, I think I'm just going to do it, and I'll let my mom take care of everything. And he told me no. He said, you have to be here. He goes, you have to be here. You have to make decisions, maybe on an hourly basis. He says, I'll write a letter to that judge, whatever I need to do. He goes, but you're not going to that trial. And so it got delayed another year, which my in-laws fought. They fought for me not to be there during all that. And,
evil motherfuckers.
Oh my God. And,
evil motherfuckers.
So
Coco has a bone marrow transplant.
Yeah.
Who gives her the bone marrow?
A stranger in Germany.
No way.
Yeah, we had a bone marrow drive. All kinds of people come and donate. Of course, the kids and I, tried to see if we were matches and anybody in my family. And
well, I remember we tried to do it.
Saved her life.
But
a stranger.
We tried to do it, but if you've had a spine surgery, you can't do it. And I've had a low back surgery, and my wife's had low back surgery. So we couldn't. They didn't even let you test.
Yeah.
So I do remember that.
Yeah, a complete stranger. It boggles my mind. Someday I need to write that person a thank you letter.
Do they let you know who it is?
No. You have to wait a while to find out. You have to wait a year. But at a year, this is when the trial's all happening. And so, I had other things going on, and I never did. I need to do that. But her surviving was a miracle. But one of the things.
So she gets the bone marrow transplant, and then tell me. I want to talk about her healing.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, let me go into one thing that was just super important. Right after that meeting that I told you about finding out about 30%, I need to go be by myself for a minute. I need to clear my head. I get on the elevator, and the guy that was in the room next to us, who had just got in there, a guy named PJ, I thought, I'm never going to talk to this guy. The first day we met, I'm wearing my Mizzou hoodie. He's wearing a KU hoodie. I'm like, never talk to this guy. Get on the elevator, and this guy's like, so, what's going on with your daughter? He says, she's got AML leukemia. And this guy's like so upbeat. I can't, and I don't want to talk about it right now. I just found out that it's not looking good. And he says, okay, so what are her chances? And I said, 30%. And he's like, that's awesome.
Because he's probably dealing with a 0%.
He was dealing with under 5. Yeah. He said, that's awesome. And that changed my whole life. That one little moment in an elevator with at the time, a complete stranger changed my whole life about how I look at things, and as far as feeling sorry for myself or for, somebody's always got it worse.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
You had it worse.
I had 0%.
Yeah.
They told me that he would be dead in a year, and he lasted 10 months.
Yeah.
So, I can empathize, but I wasn't dealing with a fucking murder trial and potentially going to jail for life on top of it. So how long did it take Coco to respond to the bone marrow? When did you know Coco was going to be fine?
Well, it takes about 5 years.
No shit. It took that long?
Yeah. Yeah, because you could always reject, her doctor that was in charge of the transplant, Dr. Roddy at Children's Mercy. He's no longer there, but they used to do a bone marrow, up until COVID, they used to do a bone marrow reunion every year with the doctors and nurses and stuff and the patients. And after, when you're going through that, I've seen enough sonograms. I mean, I couldn't read a sonogram about very much, but she swelled up so much. And so they had us go and they did a sonogram, and I looked at the sonogram.
She had to be on dexamethasone.
She was on all kinds of stuff, but
Yeah.
I don't know if she was on anything actually at the time. Now that I think about it, she was retaining water. Like the guy he did her heart, and there's this big just black hole next to her heart. I mean, humongous. And they never tell you anything, the sonogram people.
Yeah.
I looked at it and I go, well, that's not right, is it? I said, that's not good. And he says, no, because you guys are going to be going straight to the ICU. And they never, the tech never says something like that. They let the doctor say that. And she had a couple weeks where it was real touch and go after the month of touch and go with the bone marrow transplant. And that was in the summer after. And
you still haven't went back to trial. You're still,
no, still haven't
that's
gone
all
back to
postponed.
trial. And at the reunion, that Dr. Roddy, he's a Indian or something like that.
Right.
I don't know. He's really dark complected guy. And I said, I'm still mad at you because you didn't tell me how serious it was when she had all that fluid around her heart. He says, you had enough to worry about. I didn't want to give you any more. He goes, but how did you know? I said, Dr. Roddy, I go, when you were telling me about her, you were as white as your lab coat. I said, I knew. I said, so, and he's wonderful, brilliant man. Wonderful, brilliant man. And Children's Mercy, I mean, we're so lucky to have that here.
Oh, gosh, for sure. So when does Coco get a clean bill of health?
5 years later.
5
And she still has to go in for checkups, but after 5 years, it should never come back.
Okay, so at what point do you got to go back to trial?
About 8 months later,
She gets the bone marrow transplant. 8 months later, you're back in trial.
I'm at trial.
Okay, and then how long does the actual trial last?
2.5 weeks.
The trial lasts 2.5 weeks, which is actually pretty fucking quick, Al.
Cameras everywhere. I mean, just
all over the news in Iowa.
all over the news in Iowa. When they listed the top, they didn't, in no particular order, they list the top 5 news stories every year in some publication or TV, one of the TV newses, and that was in the top 5 of the news stories in Iowa that year. It was crazy. You can't make up like how crazy. I mean, I shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have had to do what I had, everything I had to do to defend myself when there was virtually no evidence against me. Virtually none. Just the bruises from trying to get her out of the freaking bathtub. I mean, they act like you just scoop somebody out of a bath. It's just not like that, especially in a panic, And
I can't even imagine.
They had one lady try and do a recreation, Andrea Zafaris. I hope she never gets to testify in a trial again. Any lawyer that allows her to testify in their trial is probably guilty of malpractice. I mean, this lady was a kook. She was a kook. She had the lead investigator playing me. So the guy that thinks I did it playing me. And then her trying to simulate being a dead person. And
it was a joke.
Yeah, but she got thrown out.
How are you able to get a guy from Kentucky to jump on board in this case that fast?
My lawyers.
And then do the thorough examination that he clearly had to do. He had to work day and night.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I just know they sent it to guys that they knew were like this guy's got a better reputation than Dr. Biden that's always on TV.
Right.
Right. So they sent it to him. He said, I want to take this case. There's no way that this guy did this.
Does he have to fly out and testify?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's
we have
when
to pay for it.
Yeah, that's when the judge. That's when the prosecutor said, "Hey, how much did you get paid for this?"
Yeah, and
And so the trial lasts 2.5 weeks, and then the jury finally says, "Hey, we've heard enough. We've reached a verdict."
Yeah, So the next when we go to deliberations, I told you about that, and he said longer is better. My attorney, I said, Bill, it's got to be shorter in this one.
So in this case right here, does it have to be unanimous?
Yes.
So you got to convince all 12 you did it. Okay? If one person says you didn't, then it's a not guilty verdict.
Well, no. Until they're unanimous, it'd be a hung jury.
Okay.
And then I got to have another trial.
Got it.
And
okay, I see.
In the morning, Marguerite calls, or Marguerite was there somewhere, staying in a hotel. So maybe she told me in person. I don't know. But Marguerite said, I talked to one of my friends that's an attorney, and she said her dad's on the Supreme Court of Missouri. And he just said, look, just be patient. He said, every morning, don't worry about it. He said, no jury comes back before lunch. He says they all want to eat their free lunch that's provided. So they never come back before lunch. All right, so, it's like 8 a.m. I'm fretting, 11 o'clock, I got the call next day. They only deliberated for about 4 hours. Got their lunch.
And so you go into court.
Well, everybody went to court ahead of me. And a good friend of mine, Andy Banker, stayed back with me. Put my clothes on. There was a church right across the street, Catholic church right across the street from the courthouse. I walked in there. I can't remember if I lit a candle. I might have just walked in there, kneeled down, and sat. And this is hard. I don't know if I've really ever told anybody the details of this. And it almost sounds unbelievable. But I swear, God spoke to me and said, it was something, you'd think you'd remember exactly, but it just, like the feeling that it gave you, it's like
peace.
Yeah, like a peace came over me, and it's the first question a reporter asked me after the trial, after the not guilty. They said, you were the most calm person in the courtroom. Why is that? And I didn't say that. I probably should have said that, but I didn't want to sound like a kook, I just said I was innocent when I walked in here, and I'm innocent walking out. I said, everybody, my side's celebrating, their side's mad. I said, my kids still don't have their mom. I don't have my wife. What's there to celebrate? And Yeah, it's not important. It's my birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, well. So I don't celebrate
You're
it.
a day after my dad. My
Yeah.
dad's March 5th.
I don't celebrate it. I never have really since I was 20.
Did my dad baptize you, or did he baptize?
Frank probably.
Was he Frank?
Yeah, because Tommy Joe.
Tommy Joe Circo baptized you? Okay.
Yeah. But so, that was really calming. And I just knew that they came back fast because it was obvious.
Of something. You don't know what it is yet, but you know in their mind it's obvious of something.
And I tried not to look at the jury when they called them in, and my lawyer said, I think that lady just smiled at you, this older lady. And he goes, that's a good sign. And my lawyer, Bill, the older, he's like 80 years old. This guy still goes sailing all the time on a sailboat in the Caribbean, and the most interesting guy you could ever meet. And he cried when they said
not guilty.
And
I can't imagine that feeling out.
And one side of the courtroom was ecstatic. Did you ever see the Dateline?
No. Can I get on YouTube and watch it?
I don't know. It's called The Quiet One. The producer kept in touch with my mom for several years after, see how the family's doing. And one year we told him, you guys keep replaying this. My son was getting in fights at school because of it. And they actually pulled it off the air for us. But it's called The Quiet One, and there's probably a video of
Dateline episode trailer, The Quiet One. January 29th, Boone, Iowa. Sure enough.
Yeah, you should watch that. Because you'll see the Dateline people said, did you really say that they were in the mafia? That doesn't look like it.
But this one right here.
That's it.
Oh, this is skip.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay.
So, this is the short. I don't know. You have to find the full version. But there's also the clip of the video of when she was messed up. But the reaction of my mother-in-law, everybody on my side when they're all yelling like praise God and all this stuff, and my mother-in-law's yelling, shut up, shut up,
just obnoxious,
like a lunatic. But for all these years.
So did they try to get you for a civil case after the criminal case?
No, and I told you earlier I got contacted by
Could they retry it?
No.
Okay.
And, I asked her a bunch of questions, because she was accusing, saying you killed my, what you've done to the family, blah, blah, blah. You selfish, you couldn't live without her. I'm like, I'm the one that was leaving, I said, she said, and you wouldn't allow, our side of the family to see them. I said, they come from all the money in the world. And in Missouri, there are visitation rights for grandparents. And they might have had to sue me for them, but they sure could have. But they didn't. And she said, well, they just were honoring your wishes that you didn't. I said, so what you're telling me is they think I'm a killer, taking care of their grandkids.
And they ain't going to try to get visitation.
And they're not going to try and see the kids.
Right.
I said, does that even make sense to you? I got this whole thing right here. This is literally like last week. And
this is all done via text message?
This was done via Facebook Messenger. It's too long to sit here. We can read it after, but it's.
This is her sister's daughter.
Yeah, so my niece. But, see, here's the problem is once your name is dragged through the mud the way mine has, everybody you meet in the back of my head is...
I'm surprised you responded to it.
I couldn't help it. I've wanted to say something to those people for a long time. I told her, I said, if I had only one wish in this world, it would probably be that when everybody in your family meets their maker and God tells them the truth, to see the look on your faces. I said, that's what my wish would be. That they got it wrong. You read through that later, and it'll only take 5 minutes tops, but I just wanted to set somebody in that family straight a little bit.
Why don't you know what you could do is say, hey, listen, you want to see your grandkids? Come see them. You just ain't seeing them without me. Fuck you. You want to see them? Come see them.
They abandoned us, They abandoned the kids. I'm not going to reward them. When Coco had cancer, they didn't show up at the hospital. They didn't call me. Is there anything we can do? They didn't, forget me. They could have called my parents.
Right.
They did no such thing.
The only thing they were concerned about was making sure you didn't have the trial delayed. They wanted to stick they wanted as much as they could.
Emily had some valuables, Some I gave her a lot. Some her parents gave her, like especially all the purses her parents gave her. But there were some, Chanel bags, Louis Vuitton bags, things like that. Well, I had everything pretty much, not the purses really, but all the jewelry. Like the Rolex that I bought her, the ring that I bought her.
Well, those are things you may want to give the kids later.
It was all wrapped up. Every piece of jewelry she had was wrapped up in a Tiffany bag from a Tiffany bracelet I had given her. And it was labeled, just said, the number 4, Coco, in a bag with a rubber band around it. The police in Boone let my in-laws in the house before they'd let my mom in the house. They took it all. They took all of it. I got a couple things back. But they,
So let me ask you this before we kind of wrap this up. Coco, Ricky, Nikki. Coco's 1 at the time. Ricky's 3, Nikki's 5. They hear you screaming, they all run upstairs. Okay? And they see what they see. And I'm sure they're all scared, crying. But Ricky and Coco don't remember anything? Have you had them in counseling now just to make sure?
Ricky is now, just recently. We did a little of hospice, what was it called? Solace House. And after she died, and that's, families, they put the kids all together, and, you're with other people that have lost, like I was in a widowers group, and the kids were in a lost my parent group. And, once I got charged, I told them, I said, I can't do this. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And they're not kidding. They took my son that said he took a shower by himself.
They would go to anybody. So so is Nikki the only one that has residuals from this as far as issues, I guess you would say, or,
No, I mean, Ricky does the most, but Nick, we all do.
Even Coco.
Well, she's had to grow up without a mom.
Right. But what I'm talking about, clearly they all have issues from the absence of their mother. Okay. But I'm talking about the trauma of that day.
Well, with Ricky, it's hard to tell. Coco was too young. She wasn't even, she was probably 2 going on see, their birthdays were all coming up. So Nikki was really almost 6 or 7. It might have been almost 7, almost 5, and almost 3.
Okay.
You know, so, but Coco doesn't remember, I know. And she's got the least amount of issues from it. But then, you know, I mean, kids in school, you know, they hear what their parents say. I mean, Coco had a friend that, you know, not her friend anymore, and her son was in Nick's grade. That's who Nick got in the fight with. They live up the street from me. They live 2 blocks from my house, and the mom thinks, you know, because of what she's read, that I killed my wife. You know, I'm like, I didn't even, and then I'm surprised. Well, how did you even let your daughter come over here and play for a little while?
How old's Coco now?
She'll be 16 next month.
Oh, god damn, it's been that long.
Yeah, Nick is 20, and Ricky's 17.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I never, you know, it's weird. I end up, I've met a woman. I'm totally in love with her.
Does she have kids?
She does. She's got 2.
So you guys are blended.
Knows everything about me. And, you know, I mean, you can't imagine, you know, how, when I was single for all the years after this, just how many times people are like, even, or customers at the show, you look familiar. Oh, I saw you. And people be like, oh, I saw you on TV. I mean, you just don't want to be associated with that situation.
Sure.
You know,
yeah.
But you can't escape it. I can't escape it. I mean, it sucks. I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't know how else to say it. There's the people that had my back from the get-go. You know, believe it or not, I used to get hundreds of messages from people on Facebook. Now, 90 to 95 out of every 100 were, I dealt with somebody with addiction. I feel so, you know, it's so obvious, you know, because of the Dateline. I mean, I don't know what these people do, why they think they have time. Why do they have time to?
And then 10% of them are wishing you death.
Oh man. But I'd argue with them. I'd say, you know, here's what you didn't see on Dateline. Why don't you ask about this or that? And, you know, and there are people that, you know what, and they end up apologizing. But, and then there's ones you'll never change their mind. But, you know, you can't believe everything you read in the papers, and you know, it's true. That's more true than what you read in the paper.
You can't read
because, like I said, you know, if I read an article where it said there were 5 life insurance policies at the house, I'd be like, oh, well, that fucker did it.
Right.
You know, I mean, so I just try and take everything I see with a grain of salt, you know.
Yeah, because the news, they just want to sell a story. They don't give a fuck about what's true.
None.
So.
None. And then just imagine the pressure of the owners of the second largest newspaper advertiser in the state. Every newspaper, they were their biggest or second biggest advertiser.
Right. So they're going to
they're going to capitulate to whatever they say. They're going to be like, "Oh, you want it to slant this way? We could probably make that."
Thank God the jury was unbiased and just listened to what was shown to them.
Thank God.
Right.
You know, and you know, I'll tell you another interesting thing is when Coco was sick, there was an Innocence Project fundraiser, and Chad said, you're going to get a chance to meet this guy. I want you to meet him. Or maybe I told Chad I really wanted to meet him, but the guy's name was Michael Morton, I think. Well, he served 17 years for killing his wife. He didn't do it. 17 years. And so you've got all these hobnobbing people wanting to talk to this guy about his book. And he's the keynote speaker at this fundraiser event. And I walked up to him and I said, I had read some of his book, and I said, "You forgave everybody." I said, "I'm in a very similar situation to you." So I said, "And you said how much better you felt after you forgave him." And I said, "I want to know how you did that, because I want that lifted off me." And the guy shuttered everybody off and just talked to me the whole practically rest of the time. And he told me, he said, "Alex," he says, 15 years in jail. And he said, when I was going to get out, he said, and I had spent every minute planning how I was going to kill the prosecutor, the investigators, everybody that had something to do with putting me in jail. He goes, I meticulously planned it out. He said, "It's too soon for you." Well, he said 17 years, so I guess I've got 4 more because I still haven't forgiven these
Well, I
people.
think what you need to do is define, like, to you, what is forgiveness? Tell me what it is, Al.
I don't know, but
So there you go.
But the problem is for me, I don't feel like they were just mistaken and feel the way they feel. I think because they were at those doctor's appointments, they know.
They knew,
and they did it anyway.
Your frustration is you feel like they knew goddamn well you didn't kill their daughter.
Fucking A right.
So I think what you need to do is understand, like, in your mind, you think forgiveness is excusing their act. Yes or no?
Well, yeah.
It's not forgiveness. That's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness has nothing to do with that. Forgiveness just means I'm not going to be attached to it anymore. Right?
Hey, I'll call you back.
Okay.
Bye.
Forgiveness just means,
I thought I turned this to silent. Obviously,
I don't care. It don't matter to me.
Obviously, I don't know how to turn the watch to silent.
That's all forgiveness is. Forgiveness just says, hey, okay, your act that takes me to anger, that takes me to rage, that takes me to depression, that ultimately controls where I go, I'm just simply not going to be attached to that anymore. So now it can't take me anywhere I don't want to go. It's not by any means excusing it and saying, hey, what you did to me is okay. That's not forgiveness. What it is, hey, you know what? That's reconciliation. You don't have any desire to reconcile with these fucks, but you do have to forgive them for you. You ain't forgiving them for them. You understand what I'm saying? You're forgiving it for you.
Right, but I feel like I could say it in my head all I want, that I'm not going to let their actions affect how I feel. But I mean,
it's controlling you. It's almost putting you in prison like they wanted to.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But because the problem is, and like you've had your share of things, and what gets you, all that weight from that trial and from Coco's cancer,
and the trauma of losing your wife
and losing it, yeah, for sure. But it's like the littlest things sometimes are just the feather too much. You know what I mean?
Listen, you're.
Do you ever feel like that?
Are you fucking kidding me?
You blow up over the littlest thing, but it's because there's all that weight.
That was just the straw. The little thing was the straw that broke the camel's
Exactly.
back. It wasn't the little thing.
Right. Right.
But you have to. Here, I'm preaching to the choir because I don't deal with my past traumas. Because I don't have time to fucking go sit in therapy for a fucking hour. And then when I do go to therapy, I'm there and I'm not present. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, here, what am I doing? What am I doing? Yeah. So, but I think I should find time to go sit and talk to someone. And a lot of times I don't go because I don't even know how to articulate some of the shit that's going on in my head.
Yeah.
I don't know how to.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Exactly.
I just don't know how to articulate it. And so I'm just like, you know what? I'm not even going to go waste my time,
Well-
but I also know that the devil will make you busy as hell to prevent you from dealing with your past trauma. And the devil will make you busy as hell if he
Well-
can't make you sin.
What helps with a lot, like this is the whole premise of the Soulless House is, they put kids together with other kids that have lost their parent. And so they don't feel alone in it. They put the widows with, guys and just, there were guys in there, girls and women in there, and you've all lost your spouse, so you don't feel alone in it. But I mean, I had to quit, and then this being on trial for a crime that you not just didn't commit, but that didn't happen.
Well, then what ends up
You're
happening
all
is,
alone in that because there's nobody out there. I
Well-
reached out to one guy, and he didn't. I don't blame him. He didn't
Here.
respond.
what ends up happening then, once the trial's done, is, and I can only speak for myself, but you start thinking, okay, let me just make sure my kids are okay. If my kids are okay,
That's the only thing.
I'll be okay. Let me just make sure they are mentally stable. If they're mentally stable and their trauma is dealt with, I'll deal with my shit later, and then you just put your shit off.
Yeah.
And then you don't deal with it at all. And I need me here, I'm throwing the stone at myself because I have not even kind of dealt with my shit. Not even kind of. A lot of times I don't like dealing with it because when I go to therapy and I start to uncover those layers and those wounds, I'm non-functioning the rest of the day.
Right.
So now, not only do I go to therapy and waste the day, my hour at therapy, I don't want to say waste, but it's an hour I'm not working, and then I get done and I'm waxed.
Yeah.
I'm useless the rest of the day. I need to just go home, sit in the room by myself and not deal with anyone. Well, I don't have that luxury.
Well, I will say this. I talked to a guy, and I don't know if he's good or a quack, but like he puts you in front of this deal, and they've got these lights, and all this stuff, and I mean, this sounds weird, but what his approach is that what happens, like, that makes you act out, and like Ricky's been just acting out something terrible lately, and he's a brilliant student, and he's just like gets like the teacher's remarks about him. Even early on, they're like, they tell me, I'm like at parent teacher conferences, and I'm like, are you sure you got the right notes, with how helpful he is and this and that? And I'm like, because he's not that for me. But what this doctor, and that's who Ricky's going to now, he says that, your brain will store things in like a certain part of your brain, which is your quick trick, makes it like in your quick twitch response. And it makes you defensive and makes a person, act out and go from 0 to 1,000 over, he says, and that's trauma. And so he does these exercises that it just pushes it to the part of the brain, like it's still there, but it pushes it to the part of the brain where it's more latent.
Right. Well, and you also have to do, like, when you're dealing with mental therapy, it's not much different than physical therapy, right? You can't just think you're going to go to physical therapy and go to therapy for a couple hours a week and get better. You got to go do your shit on your own at home too.
Yeah.
And practice it. And if you're going to go to mental therapy, you got to do that too. That's where I fail. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I can go sit there for an hour and just unload this bucket of shit on you. But then when you give me things to go home and work on, usually I just, I got to go.
I mean, I try
work,
not to ever talk about it because, you just feel like you're complaining.
Well, but not only that, number one, nobody gives a fuck.
Right.
I told Gianna that because, after Nina died, Gianna was dealing with some shit and Gianna was, had a bad attitude in sports. And I said, let me tell you something. Nobody gives a fuck. I give a fuck. Your mom gives a fuck. Your siblings give a fuck. I talking to her just like this. She was 12, maybe. Might have been younger. Might have been 11. I can't remember. I said, your coach, she gives a fuck to a point, but if you're not going to produce, she's not going to play you. She don't give a fuck.
Right.
My boss, they don't give a fuck.
No, you just have to overcome it.
You gotta overcome it. I can't go to my boss and say, hey, listen, you know what? I've buried 2 kids and I just don't fucking feel like it today.
Right.
He's going to say, what?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, no one fucking cares. Put your boots on and fucking go do what you got to do.
Well, and the thing is, that's good advice because going and being productive.
That is, and she was crying and she had the bottom lip out, and that was a very difficult conversation. And I was holding back tears because I didn't want to get emotional because I wanted it to be stern, right? I wanted her to understand. Look, you don't get an excuse because this happened to you in life.
Yeah, and because that's always over you and it always feels bad.
I feel like it. I talk to God sometimes and I'm like, you know what? This one part of my life, and usually it's money. Just make this fucking easy, will you please?
Right.
Can you just make this one part of my life, my finances, can I just have that be easy, God? Please. I got other shit that I got to deal with. I don't need to worry about money. Just fucking make this part easy. I feel like I deserve that. Well, you know what? You don't.
Right.
You don't. You get up every morning and you deserve nothing. You're entitled to nothing. People owe you nothing. Just fuck, it is what it is. So you still got to go out. And that's part of the reason why I really don't want to go to therapy, because I don't have time to fucking feel bad for myself or feel sorry for myself. I don't have fucking time. I do it. There's times I do it. I sit at home and I'm just like, look, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk to my friends. I don't want to talk to my wife. I just leave me alone for a couple hours.
Right.
And let me wallow in this. I'll work my way out of it.
But going in, being productive.
You have to.
Is good. It's the only thing that makes it better, really. Because because you get yourself into a downward spiral instead of an upward spiral.
Right.
And as you get things accomplished, the next thing, everything gets easier and easier. But if you get in a downward spiral, it gets harder and harder to come out.
Well, the problem with me is I don't enjoy downtime. I go and then I sleep. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't get to enjoy downtime just because by the time I get it, I've worked.
How old are you?
46.
Give it 4 more years.
I don't. I go and go and go and go. Here, me and my wife, here, let's go sit down and watch a movie. It's a Friday night. Man, I'm done. I'm out. 10 minutes into the movie, if that, I'm out. I'm asleep. And so it's not a good way to live.
Yeah.
It's not. My kids, I'll say, hey, you guys want to watch a movie? Why? You're just going to fall asleep. And they're right. That's not a good way to live. You want to be able to enjoy, I usually, I will include when we take a family vacation, that first day, I sleep the whole time. I get there and I sleep the entire time. And so I include that in my if I know I'm going to take a 7-day vacation, I'm going to make it 8, because that first day I know I'm sleeping the whole entire time. And then I can go and I can enjoy the
See, I hope I didn't mess up this podcast. I didn't really let you ask a lot of questions. I just started going.
I wanted you to do exactly what you did.
But because you know what the problem is with it is you hold everything inside so much. And then once you've got like this green light, it just starts
flowing.
Man, and that's why, God, I don't know. I just wish I could.
I think I've asked.
I wish people could see my point of view.
It's so hard. What people think about you is none of your business, and what people say about you is none of your business. What they say to you you could deal with.
I'd
Right.
rather somebody call me something to my face. than
100%.
behind
No,
my
that's what I'm
back.
saying. So don't worry about what
You
they
know,
say behind your back.
Because what I don't like is because I've had people that I considered friends do it.
Fuck them.
I mean, they're not my friends now, but you know,
No.
I'd like to just know and be there so I can.
Here, you know goddamn well your circle shrinks with every year that you age. And
Yeah.
how many people have you grown up with that you thought were in your corner, but they weren't? There's people in your circle that ain't in your corner.
Oh, I know.
I mean, you know that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's
So you discern who they are. You figure out who they are. You don't do this big separation. You know, you just gradually just separate, move yourself away, and then eventually you just don't see them
Yeah.
anymore.
But see, I mean, like growing up in Lee Summit, you know, I mean, I remember we had notes on our door, you know, mafia family with your fancy cars, get out of here. And,
Oh yeah,
you know,
I can
like,
imagine.
it's weird, like, you know, because like in the Italian community, I mean, everybody's so tight knit. Except for the kids that grew up in Lee Summit.
Well,
you know what
hold
I
on.
mean? It really is. It's like I was the Italian kid. Me and Nick Silvio were always the Italian kid at Lee Summit High School. But then, like for me especially, like coming out north, everybody, like I was kind of an